right, so a frequent question I get is, how do we wash vehicles in the summertime outside? We're in Texas, it gets absurdly hot, the humidity is unbearable sometimes. So when we're outside working on a vehicle and the sun is just beaming down, it overheats the vehicle, the paint, the panels are super hot, the chemicals instantly dry depending on what side of the vehicle, and you just can't go about the same way you would if you're working in a shop or in a shaded environment. So in this video, I'll talk to you about how we wash vehicles mobile out in the job sites and a few tips that you can do based on what you have or what you don't have. So by far, the biggest help for us being mobile, working on vehicles, is that we have DI water. We have deionized water. I'll link down where we get our DI water, but that is a huge difference since over the last year, we've been using DI water out in the field, and we don't have to worry about streaks. We don't have to worry about water spots. We don't have to worry about anything, because if it does dry on the paint, it's clean water. There's no minerals in it, so there's nothing to set on the paint. So far and foremost, if there's one thing that would change everything when you're working outside, is having DI water. There's quite a few options out there. I'm not saying that the one that we use is the best or the cheapest or the most affordable, but there are plenty of options out there. But that in itself will change everything. In the van, we have a 100-gallon water tank, and we have DI water in there. So we do use it in our wash bucket, cleaning wheels, rinsing the vehicle, in our pump sprayers and spray bottles for O&R. All that is primarily DI based, like DI water based. So that's what really helps. Now, you don't really need DI water inside of chemicals because you're not gonna let it sit on there anyways. But as far as when it comes to rinsing the wheels, rinsing the tires, rinsing the paint, having DI makes a tremendous difference. Now, even if we do have the DI though, we're still gonna follow some basic rules where we're going to wash one side of the vehicle faster, quicker, or in sections relative compared to the other side. So, when you're working outside, usually there's one side that's facing the sun, so it's getting way more beat down by the sun, versus the other side where it's technically gonna be on the shaded area because the sun's not hitting it, right? So on the side that the sun's hitting it, we'll either work in sections, we'll work quicker, we'll change out the process because the panels are gonna be super, super hot. So aside from the DI water, we might, let's say we're in the wash process, right? We're gonna continually rinse down that side so the soap doesn't dry on. Or let's say we're clean, we're gonna continually spray down the panel. Let's say on that side specifically, if it gets too hot, we won't even do the iron remover on that side of the vehicle because there's no way we're gonna rinse it off in time before the chemical dries on the paint, and then we're just working over ourselves. So when it's like extremely hot on the panels, we will do a different process than on the other side, just because of the limitations of the panels being too hot. Following that point with the iron remover is that if the chemical doesn't have to stay there longer than it needs to, it won't, right? Whatever you're doing, whatever process, whatever chemical, don't let a chemical dry on the vehicle if it doesn't have to, or if it doesn't have to stay there long enough, right? So if it is an iron remover and you want to wait for it to turn purple and stuff on that hot side, you're not doing that. If you really want to, you could do one side, the iron remover, turn the car around, wait a little bit, let the heat kind of go down on that side of the vehicle and then hit it with the iron remover if you want to take it that far. But honestly, like sometimes it's very difficult. Like a prime example that I can give you is when we were working on a like F-250 in a business park, and it was like somewhat of a tight space, and the whole right side of the vehicle was just being beat down from the sun the moment we got there. So on the right side of the vehicle, I mean, you would touch it, you would burn your hand. Like the water touches it, it evaporates. Whereas on the left side, it was normal temperature because the shade was on there. So times like that, you just won't be able to do everything. So whatever chemical you're using to clean or to protect or to prep, whatever it is, you might have to do less, do faster, skip it, or change it up based on the heat. So next point is wear proper clothes and attire to keep you not as hot, and just kind of worry about your health, where if you're out there and it's really hot and you're not wearing a hat, no sunglasses, no long sleeve, no sunscreen, that's just shooting yourself in the foot. So at a minimum, wear a hat. At a minimum, wear some sunglasses. At a minimum, put on sunscreen. At a minimum, wear pants. Do the basic things you need to do to just not so much be more comfortable, because when it's 105, 104, 107 plus humidity, there's only so much more comfortability that there is for you to do outside when you're working, sweating, dripping sweat, right? So not so much comfortability, but as far as just keeping the sun off of you, wear the proper attire. You might not like it, you want to rock something back. Wear the proper attire. The next point to that is make sure you're drinking liquids. And I know it's and not like soda or anything like that. I'm talking about like water, Gatorade, something with electrolytes, because I know it's difficult to drink a lot of liquids when you're out in the field, because you're out in the field, you don't have a restroom readily available. If you have to go to the restroom, you have to pack up and go somewhere, or you have to ask. But if you're like at a business where the customer's not there, you don't need it. So it can be cumbersome to stay hydrated when you're out in the field, especially if you're out there 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a day. But again, it's just one of those things where if you don't stay hydrated, you are just hurting yourself and your health. And when you get back home and you're dehydrated and you're just trying to fire on all cylinders to just get by through the day, when you get home and you go to sleep, that's when you're really gonna feel it. The next day you'll feel it even worse. So stay hydrated when you're out there. Gatorades, Powerades, something with electrolytes, water, keep that handy on hand. Have a cooler, keep them cold, take food, take snacks, because that will play a huge part in just to sustain yourself outside. It's easy, when you're outside working in straight heat, the sun sucks the soul out of you, right? It's not fun being out there. It's not joyful. You want to go home, but you have to finish the work. It makes detailing harder. It's such an annoyance to be out there with really, really, really hot weather. So food, water, attire, it is crucial for you in order to be able to be out there every single day, or at least multiple times out of the week. So one thing we'll do here is the same way that we check the weather to see if it's going to rain, and if it is going to rain, at what time, and if at what time, what area, and for what area, how much rain. It should be the same thing with summertime, where and this is obviously for those areas that get those heat advisories that it gets actually hot. We'd have to check the schedule, the weather, to see, hey, how hot is it going to get today, right? And what's the peak hours? Because if it's going to get 104, then by default, when we get there, we're gonna put up the canopy. It's not oh, it's not gonna get that hot, maybe we can finish fast enough. If the weather says it's gonna be at, I'm just making up a number, but let's say 104, 105, whatever, 103, 101 even, just default, let's take out the canopy when we get there, because it's going to get hot. It's the same thing, because if it gets to a certain point, right, if it's at 104, and you're working for 8 hours, 6 hours at the job site, right, that will eat away at your like at your energy, right? And like over that period of time, you just need any type of shade, right? It is a huge difference between having like a little bit of shade and no shade. And if you can, or if you have a big enough canopy to cover the entire vehicle and give you shade inside or around you, it's gonna make a huge difference. So check the weather, just like you do with the rain, to see, hey, look, how hot it's gonna be. If it's gonna pass a certain temperature, whatever temperature that is to you in your area, when you get there, just put up the canopy. And of course, like, you need the canopy. Like our canopy, it's a 10 by 10 from Academy. Like I think it's like $100 or something. So it's nothing crazy. It's nothing like overly aggressive in terms of like build quality, but it gets the job done. Now, something that you can specifically do is if you're trying to wash a vehicle, you could go with a rinseless wash. Obviously, the vehicle has to be in a condition to where it can accept the rinseless wash, meaning like it's not that dirty to where you can still do it like that. And with that regard, I've done that for years. I did it that way, where you'd wash a panel and then immediately dry it, right? And you don't have to have DI water with this, because you're gonna rinse it, and as soon as you wash it, you're gonna go straight into the dry process, and you'll just do that panel up by panel. It gets a little cumbersome, it can take a little longer, but that is definitely an option when you don't have DI water, when you don't have a big van, when you don't have a canopy, and you have to work this. I'm working on a hot car at an apartment, no canopy, no water tank, no DI water. What do I do? Just wash a panel, dry a panel, wash a panel, dry a panel. Let's say you're gonna do a wash and wax. You wash, clay, dry a panel, and keep on repeating that process panel to panel. It's not as efficient, but look, that's what you can do, that's what you have, that's how you're gonna get the job done. And that's definitely, and I did that literally for years. All right, so I'm gonna end it right there. Hopefully I gave you some tips, nuggets, advice for you to implement into your business. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, concerns about anything that I mentioned. If you want me to go into more detail about anything, or if you have any tips yourself, leave them down in the comment section down below to help out others, because most of us are mobile detailers and a lot of us face some pretty hot weather. So I'll see everyone on the next one. Bye-bye.